According to data from Media Radar, CNN experienced a nearly 40% drop in ad revenue through the first 4 months of 2023 compared to the same time period last year, which was before Chris Licht officially took over as network chief. This is according to reporting from the Daily Beast. This comes as Rolling Stone reports that CNN staffers are relieved to see Licht go. Employees at the fledgling network are reportedly exhausted, quote, and quote, sick of being embarrassed.
This was very bad news, obviously, for CNN. Makes things easier to understand why they let him go, even though I think the outrage over that 15,000-word profile of him in The Atlantic was part of it. You know, it shows that that what he was going for in terms of a network that is like no longer has an anti-Trump perspective. Like, I think that makes sense. I understand the vision of wanting to pivot away from being just the home for constant anti-Trump resistant libs, but the question is, what do you replace that with? And replacing it with this kind of view from nowhere, just objective report, like that era is over. The everybody sits around and listens to Walter Cronkite era is never coming back. We have a much more scattered media environment. People are listening to newscasters, entertainment personalities, people that they trust because they know that person's perspective. They want fairness and they want hard-hitting news, but they don't want someone who you don't know what they really think and they're just kind of mindlessly recycling whatever elites want them to say. Like, that is, people have tuned that out. So, you know, pivoting from having an aggressive agenda, which is what CNN had during the Trump years, I think, to an agenda that was very limiting, because I don't know how big the audience was for that kind of thing, but to no identifiable agenda, I don't know that works. And so far, the previous CEO did not show that works. The advertisement revenue way down compared to other networks. Fox only dipped slightly in that same time period. I think MSNBC only dipped slightly in that time period. So it was a big loss compared to what everyone else was experiencing. Yeah, I think, the sick of being embarrassed thing is a little shocking to me. It was less than a year. Were producers hired? What changed? Because you can point to maybe the Don Lemon comments, embarrassing situation. Right. Maybe you can point to the CNN town hall. For me, I don't see CNN as this like disgraced news network that's been embarrassed terribly. You haven't been watching Rising enough. We consider it. We preface all our commentary on CNN with disgraced network. I get your point, and some of the reporting I think that some of the people do there is perfectly fine and probably didn't change very much. It sounds honestly like the staff were very frustrated with Chris Licht, and that he didn't have their confidence, and there was a lot of internal frustration with the town hall. But some of that frustration might be not really well informed, because they just hate so many people who work there. I mean, they hate the idea of the Trump voter, and they don't want to appeal to them at all. Like, that town hall was this weird amalgamation of priorities, where Chris Licht wants a big, influential primetime event that everyone tunes in for. But it's geared toward Republican primary voters. And the host is someone, Caitlin Collins, who ostensibly was at one point a Republican, but is, one of those never Trump TV personalities who hasn't signaled to me she really gets what Trump voters' concerns are. So she's grilling Trump from a perspective that doesn't match the audience, and the audience is thus cheering Trump against her. And I think it was a good idea to do it, and so many people in mainstream media were like, how dare you even platform Trump? And he's going to be platformed. He's being platformed. Sorry, you can't stop that. That didn't make sense. But the rest of it was kind of SHIT show.
Yeah, I think their goal of finding some kind of centrist middle ground to appeal to is their problem, because does that exist in the United States of America? I think if you asked people in any other country around the world where the U.S. center falls in any other country, they would say on the right, and many on the far right. And so the idea that you have to appeal to a centrist middle ground in a country like that puts you in a precarious position as a news network. And so what do? I think you make a good point that people follow people more than they follow institutions at this point. There are very few people who are like, I just love CNN. I'm just a big CNN guy. People definitely follow individual commentators and reporters that they respect. And maybe if CNN were to pivot towards something like, I don't know, original reporting, investigative news, allowing their anchors to share some of their own personal opinions, that might be better than trying to curate some kind of middle-of-the-road, appeal to both sides approach that CNN supposedly has taken, because this is where it's gotten them. I
mean, really, I think ordinary people are watching because they're at the gym or they're at the airport, and that's
just
what's on. CNN is, I mean, this is, I think, broadly true of cable news in general. Younger people are seeking out news on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, on TikTok. I know you're particularly active there. That's where you can get all your Jessica news is on TikTok. And you know what? Honestly, I think that can be better and that can be healthier than just having a handful of supposedly objective, supposedly neutral, but in all honesty, not neutral whatsoever, voices who are the commanding ones, and everyone's sitting around listening to them. But there's very little dissent or disagreement, and there's even maybe an effort to shield them from what's really going on. We have this fantasy of that it used to be better because there used to be less discord, more agreement, more harmony, and less dissension in the news atmosphere. But was that really better? I don't think it was.
Right. I mean, the biggest bias in news coverage is just, what are you covering? What is the story? And so I always hear people say, I miss the old days when they would just give us the facts of the story, when there's a whole world of news happening every day. And there's so much bias in focusing on X, Y, and Z, and what facts are you going to use to back up what happened, when you could ask many different kinds of people about their opinions on what happened on the news, instead of just saying, this eyewitness said this, and these are the facts of the story. Why did you pick that eyewitness? Why did you include those facts? Why did you pick that story? There's always been bias in news coverage, and there really is no such thing as neutral coverage or news coverage that is truly in the middle of the road, unless you're polling the public and only saying the opinions that the majority of people believe, which would really limit your news coverage, because we as a country we all believe next to nothing. We agree on next to nothing. The average voter or average American is a mixed bag of views. They don't expect the news anchor or a political commentator to say everything that they would agree with every time. And I think to strive towards that is probably a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And CNN, and then for all the change in direction that Chris Licht said he wanted to impose on the network, and he did make a couple personnel changes and shuffle some things, to me the content seemed broadly similar as it was years before. I'm not watching every day. I'm probably watching more than most people. And it's still, during this classified documents thing, it's been wall-to-wall coverage of the document scandal in what I would say is a somewhat sensational, bringing on all these former law enforcement people, like, oh, this is going to be the thing that dooms Trump. It's that kind of talk. Like, how many more times are we going to cry wolf on this thing? Which is not to say there's no legitimate criminal wrongdoing, but the idea that finally Trump is done because he had some documents where he wasn't supposed to have them strikes me as very in keeping with the kind of, with exactly the way the network covered every event of the Trump administration, with dramatic self-importance.
Which I think all of this points to, there must be something more going on internally that the talent is experiencing that we're not getting on our side of things. What conversations are going into what decisions are made in production meetings, and how much say would the chief executive have in those meetings to have influence over them and cause this chaos and lead people to say he's burning CNN to the ground, right?
Well, in the Atlantic profile, it sounded like he was having a lot of input, and maybe that's what was making people internally annoyed. So we'll continue to follow CNN's prospects, but that does it for us today. Tomorrow, Jessica will be back here along with Amber Athey, and I will hand off the baton to them. Very much looking forward to watching, and they'll see you tomorrow. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're available anywhere that you can consume podcast-based content. Take care.
It's been fun, Robby.
Good having you.